The age-old question of Marvel versus DC seems to have been answered ever since the amazing success of the MCU started, and since DC movies became sidelined in the world of movies based on comic books. Yes, DC had some successes. The Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy did well, and Aquaman was to my absolute surprise a box office hit, earning a whopping $1.14 billion. That is huge and earned itself the 9th place of highest grossing superhero movies. But the other 9 places of the top 10 are all firmly held by Marvel, with the top earning movie being Avengers Endgame with a total of $2.8 billion. When we look back, before Marvel was the behemoth that it is today, I think few people would have predicted their absolute domination. In the broader society, DC superheroes were actually way better known than the Marvel ones. Everyone had heard of Batman and Superman, but relatively few of those who were not directly interested in comic books would have heard of Star-Lord or Rocket Raccoon. So, how was it possible that Marvel brought unknown characters to the big screen so successfully, while DC failed to hone in on their very well-known heavy hitters? For the longest time, there wasn't much more to the DC universe than Batman and Superman and their respective villains. Yes, there was a Wonder Woman movie back in 2017, and it was actually pretty good. But in comparison to just how many Superman and Batman movies there are, no other superhero can compete. But especially the more obscure superheroes became really popular for Marvel, and you all know the main example of this, Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think even Marvel could predict just how popular these characters would be. The second Guardians of the Galaxy movie is actually the 18th highest grossing superhero movie, and even the first one managed to climb to 27th place, which is quite an achievement considering how obscure and unknown they were at the beginning. So, bearing all this in mind, I want to look at some of the less known superheroes of DC and see if DC could perhaps bring in weirder and underrated superheroes to make them a hit, just like Marvel did with our beloved Guardians. So finally, welcome to Rebel Culture. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to like and to subscribe. And off we go, straight into the topic of obscure DC superheroes. First, we have the Challengers of the Unknown. So ironic, because they are literally unknown, and I don't see them challenging the position anytime soon. But how cool would it be? Don't know who they are? Well, let's change that. The Challengers of the Unknown are a group of 4 guys with their origins being in 1957. Their group is made up of pilot Kyle Ace Morgan, Daredevil Matthew Red Ryan, strong Leslie Rocky Davis, and scientist Walter Mark Prof Haley. They band together after miraculously surviving a plane crash, deciding then and there to go on hazardous adventures as they're living on borrowed time anyways. I think that this is a really interesting starting point because it is a very active choice on their behalf. They didn't get magical powers in the crash and then feel like they owe it to anyone to become superheroes and to use their abilities for good. They don't do it because of survivor's guilt or because their inherent superiority over others that makes it seem like a waste if they wouldn't use their powers. Rather, these are just 4 guys who, yes, had a dramatic experience, but very actively make the decision to entirely change their lives and to fight the unknown. As their team name states, they challenge the unknown, a little like the Ghostbusters, but just that it's not necessarily ghosts that they deal with, but pretty much any manner of mystery, facing off with genies, aliens, robots, and mythological creatures like rocks, who essentially are enormous birds of prey. With that, you can have the typical arc of the Challengers of the Unknown being made aware of some threat and then fighting it in the movie, following the typical recipe of a superhero movie. But given this, why did I choose them in particular? Well, many reasons. For one, it is not a single superhero, but instead a group of 4. Therefore, it can follow a formula somewhat closely to Guardians of the Galaxy, where you also follow a group of people who become friends as they fight evil in the world. Secondly, you can play a little more with the setting of the Challengers of the Unknown. The original comic is from the 50s, so it could be a really cool timepiece, seeing them in snazzy suits from the 50s, smoking cigars, and all the shebang, without the misogyny, of course. This would set them apart from most other superhero movies, while also honing in on the love people hold for the past. There is a reason why so many popular TV shows heavily lean on either overtly taking place in the 80s or heavily leaning on elements of the 80s. Also, one of Vision's first episodes actually took place in the 50s and 60s, and I really loved the whole aesthetic, so I can really see that this would make the Challengers of the Unknown stand out amongst the other superhero movies. Secondly, we have Raven, the daughter of darkness. She is a badass and has amazing powers that would look so great on screen. Her father is a demon, her mother a human. What a recipe for a cool character. She herself is an empath, so she can sense emotions but also influence them, for example, induce extreme stress or alleviate pain. But more than that, she can control her soul self, which can fight physically, as well as act as Raven's eyes and ears away from her physical body. These are her core abilities, though in more recent installations she is also depicted as a magician or sorceress. And if you want to do some magic, you can do so right now. Click the like or subscribe button and you will make two people thousands of miles away very happy. But back to Raven. While being on the side of the good guys, she is clearly of a darker nature. You don't grow up with a demon dad without some darkness in you. She's usually depicted in dark colors, oftentimes with half of her face covered by a shadow. But I think this altogether mysterious character is exactly what would make it so intriguing to follow her. Her internal struggle is predetermined due to her parentage, making her a complex hero, one that is clearly not infallible, but one that, despite demonic and dark forces inside of her, is striving for the light. In recent times, we have seen more and more complex heroes. The time of Captain America has passed. He is a hero with simple perspective on what is right and wrong, for simpler times. No wonder he appeared in the times of the Nazis. It was clear who the good and who the bad guys were. But modern day is not that simple. In fact, someone with such a black and white view of the world would not survive for long in this complex world that we live in today. That is why, in Marvel, Iron Man is the perfect counterweight to Captain America. While DC has this duo in a way already, through Batman, who is more complex, and Superman, who is very much someone who would walk on the straight and narrow, I think that we could definitely do with a new complex superhero. One who still has a new story to tell, and that is why Raven would be such a hit. Plus, she might be a great way to bring the Teen Titans on the big screens of cinema, as she is the founding member of the new Teen Titans, which in and of itself would be amazing to see. Beyond the Challengers of the Unknown and Raven, there's one more secret hero of DC that I want to introduce you to. Deadman. Yes, you hear right, it is literally a dead man. We all know horror movies with ghosts, possessions, and exorcisms. But what if the ghost were the good guy? That is exactly what Deadman is. He is a former circus performer who was murdered in the midst of his act. He was granted the ability to possess people by the Hindu god Ramakrishna, so that he could roam the earth to find his assassin, so his spirit could find some peace. This premise and origin story quite literally write itself, and would give any director so many options of what to do with this grim character. You could either lean into the full horror elements of ghosts and possessing people, but I could also picture this character killing with dark and twisted humor. This would definitely be another dark version of a superhero, but from a very different perspective than Raven, for example. While Raven is consumed by an internal struggle, Deadman is consumed by vengeance, seeking to find out who killed him and why. While that could be his driving force in the first movie, from the comics we do know that once he finds his killer, he continues his work as Deadman in order to balance the scales of justice. This could be a great story arc for the character, a sort of redemption and him truly finding peace in knowing who killed him while fighting for the justice that he never got. Who are some of the DC superheroes that you think are totally underrated and would deserve their own movies? Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching Rebel Culture. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like it, and if our topics are your thing in general, then definitely subscribe to the channel. It was great having you here today, and hey, why not check out some more of our videos right now? See you next time, here in Rebel Culture.